Okay, so for this one, the 3-word prompts that we got were ball of yarn, toothbrush, and egg. So let's see what I did with those. Starting off with the egg, I'm going to make a sphere shape and add some edits to that. In using proportional editing, I'm going to try and get the egg shape down, but it's looking a little wonky because I'm not doing the best job editing and selecting things. That's okay, that's pretty close, but that line in the middle is a little ugly, so we're going to try and fix that. I think that, yes, that looks good if I only use one selection. I like that. We're now going to add a little platform, more of like a hill for our little egg to sit on. I like that. Going to use some proportional editing to move that around. I like that. That looks pretty good. I'm going to add the color now. That's pretty good. And get a color system to this. After this, I'm going to add the inside of the egg. So we have a split open egg and a full egg. I feel like that could add a lot of character and personality to our scene here. Giving different colors for the color ramp is good. There's the egg that I made with the yolk in the middle. That's all set up like that. The color ramp isn't working right now, so I'm just going to have to mess with it on my own to make the colors different. I like that. I don't think having too many different colors actually looked good, so I've made one only white and darker browns. I think that looks pretty good. And now we're getting a little hen house because I feel like we're missing something here. And I feel like that could, if this looks okay, could be a decent detail piece to our little hill here. The second task we have is making a toothbrush. So I'm going to start with a cylinder here and work with the scaling on that. Add some loop cuts and sort of just try and get the rough shape of the bottom down. Now we can reach up and get into the neck where it requires a little bit more scaling work in order to make it look a little more accurate. And then up at the top, we're going to, instead of adding a cylinder to make the circle, we're just going to use the cylinder still. And just inset that a little. It doesn't need to be perfect here. I really didn't have a plan. I think I'm going to use one of my favorite texturing techniques of lowering the roughness and the metallicness on this and increasing the metallicness, my bad, to create a texture on the toothbrush. I'm just covering because I don't want to talk about how much trouble I had trying to figure out what was going on with the top of this toothbrush. I tried to make the hairs with those. That didn't really work. I then tried to sculpt it, which didn't really work, but I think it looked okay as sort of like a toothpaste. You'll see me starting to fidget with that now. It looks kind of bad. Even with the remesh, it still is looking kind of goofy, but I think once that's colored, it doesn't really matter. As long as we keep the rest of the toothbrush looking okay. Just crunch that back a little. Yep, that looks fine. If we add a little bit of a more texture to it with the Musgrave texture, I think, to add just maybe some of that like minty toothpaste detail, I think that looks okay, I guess. Honestly, not my favorite work from this project so far. May add a little bit of a color down there and add a button to the front so that it's just not a cylindrical tube with no purpose. Gonna add a little button at the top. It kind of looks goofy. I got a little lazy here, but that's okay. My plans for this toothbrush involve it lying down on the grass like that, and I'm gonna distort it a little bit and like bury it into the ground a little bit. I think that's perfect. Our final task is making yarn. I'm going to ditch the whole ball of yarn thing here and just go for little threads of yarn spread across the map. I'm drawing them here with the curve drawing tool, and I think that looks, honestly, way better than I thought it would so far. I can just edit them very minimally, and once we add a bevel, I think the detail is really starting to come through here and really meets what I wanted it to be. I was really struggling with how I was going to do a ball of yarn because my modeling skills are not good for making a ball of yarn. I learned while prepping for this. So we've got here my plan, and we're going to dye it red now. Dye it red's a weird way to say it, but we're going to make it red. And I think once we've realigned everything and making sure it's above the map and not clipping through the map, we are going to add the actual textures I want with the colors, making it so it looks a little more yarn-like. I realized here that it's a little more difficult to make the yarn texture than I wanted, even with remeshing it, to try and create the little more rough yarn details, but I think that's okay. I think the yarn, honestly, in the final render will end up looking okay. It's looking okay. I wish the lines went a little more, like, jittered all over the place, but that's okay. The yarn, honestly, better than I expected.